happy you are here, bringing Patricia Brown in another time and space. And first, let me introduce the artist. Just beside me is Fdili Alaoui, the choreographer of the piece. And then I will introduce Sullivan, the composer, musician, and also the programmer of the piece. And then Bartosz, Ostrowski, dancer and actor. And Chédin, musician and percussionist, and in charge for the video projections tonight.
Also, I should add, Leo, also a lot of the programming. Thank you.
It was quite a collaboration. So first I would like to ask you, how is it for you to bring back to Patricia Brown and have it today in another context, like for today?
Yeah.
What was the motivation? What moved you to it?
Yes. So the beginning of it is really an interest in Trisha's legacy and how much she brought to dance in terms of that freedom of movement, and in terms of also choreographic structures and playing with rules on stage, playing with setups, different setups in which dance can happen. She really, along with other choreographers, rethought a little bit how dance can be performed and what it means for dancers, but also for the audience members who's receiving it. So I always really had a big sensitivity to her work and to the work of the Judson Church. And then when we started this project with John, we thought we wanted to apply to MODINA. We thought, what about if we play with these choreographic structures and compositional structures, but this time we perform it in 2024, meaning we bring it into a world that's highly mediated with technology, where everyone's talking about AI, etc. What if we use these technologies creatively in order to regenerate ways in which we can compose with music and regenerate compositional and choreographic structure? So that's the initial idea of the project, but we didn't know how we were going to do it, obviously. So we came to Bucharest kind of with just a concept. Okay, we're gonna take inspiration from Patricia Brown, the Judson Church, and we're gonna develop some AI, artificial intelligence, that will instruct us on how to dance on stage. And we didn't know what the AI would look like, how we'd perform it, how we'd get that information on stage, what it would look like, what it would sound like, nothing. So it all came to life here, basically, in CNDB.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing, which was, I think kind of so I'm relatively new to Trisha Brown's work. I'm relatively new to working with dance in general. My background is all music, so I have a pretty good understanding and background with minimalist composers and sort of post-modern traditions in music and experimental music, but dance is kind of new. So working with, well, not working with Trisha Brown, but working with her material, there's a lot of things that translate well to, I won't necessarily say AI, but working with digital media and computational creativity, the sort of algorithmic structures of her piece and the use of serialism and repetition and things like that sort of seemed like a really natural fit to explore a piece that uses a lot of technology and uses a lot of AI to do something generative. So
yeah, and so that was the beginning of the piece. There were some principles that we had in mind. We didn't want the technology to be too visible on stage. We wanted to be an underlying system that would tell us what to do, that's really kind of putting together the structure of the work, but you wouldn't be seeing avatars and AI and like futuristic stuff on stage. So you'd be seeing basically four two musicians, two dancers, just the bodies and the music. And the system would be somehow hidden to the audience member, would be mostly understood by us. So there are hints of it. Obviously, you see that there's a screen out there that's giving us some instructions, and there are scores. There are actually dance scores that are on screen. There are also indicative of what kind of parts or sequences we're playing with on stage. But it would be very hard for you to actually completely understand what the scores are saying. But they represent what we're doing on stage, basically. So, and that was actually an intention, a strong intention that we had with John, to kind of hide a little bit the whole technological apparatus behind the piece.
Yeah, definitely. And that was from I think the get-go, we talked about doing a piece musically that would have actually piano and acoustic drums in it to just, not make it a completely electric digital piece. And so we tried to sort of weave the two together.
Yeah, so in terms of the choreography and also the composition, you extracted this data from Patricia Brown's videos, and you kind of made this synchronizes into the movement and also the rhythms that she used. And I want to ask you, how does your body as a dancer from today feels her movements? And also Bartok? I'm very curious, you as a dancer of today, how you felt her movements on your body.
I don't know if it's her movements, Sarah's movements, or Trisha's. I don't know. I think it's like the less of the movements, more the idea of how to move in terms of the structure and composition. I think it was kind of a new experience to be guided by a conceptual framework. And there is also always this, I think I'm gonna have some pain here due to always looking at the screen. But it's nice, it's like puzzling yourself in different variations. It's like playing both with where's the end and where's the beginning of the phrase. And it's actually a lot of brain work, so maybe it's actually, I'm gonna have a headache rather than sore muscles.
Yeah, maybe I can also add a little bit of that. To me, it's something that I feel very comfortable with. So there are a lot of similarities in how we worked with movement and how she worked with movement. So the sequences we have, so there are like 3 parts, obviously, that you saw in the piece. There's a first part that's called If. It's actually called If You Could See Me, inspired by her piece If You Couldn't See Me. And then there's the second part is called Ummi. In Arabic it means mother, and it's a part that I choreographed on a song by Mircea Khalifa and a poem by Mahmoud Darwish. And then there's a third part, which is Bartok's walk, inspired by Bartek, and it's the walk we have all over the piece. It's the same walk that we do in the H, it's the same walk that we do as transitions, and it's kind of like a red thread that you can see throughout the three sections. And the first If is basically a big chunk of choreography that we chunked up again, and then John composed a song, then we cut the song in little pieces, and then we made correspondences between the dance and the song, and we made everything on 16 counts, exactly 16 counts. So every sequence we do has to fall into that 16 counts, which is why it's very brainy. You have to always be on the count. And so I think what Trisha does, and what's actually similar here, is that it feels like it's very flowy and it's very playful, but it's actually extremely kind of like precise at the very count. And I like that. I like that you start with a very constrained environment, you start with a very constrained choreography, and then you find freedom in that constraint. You kind of start looking at these little interstices of space, and you see what you can do in that. And that's very much something that I like to work with, and that's very present in this piece. So it's very formal in the way in which it's choreographed, and then we switch it back, we play with it again, we destroy it a little bit, and then we find playfulness in that kind of switching and turning things around. The second section is basically kind of the same. So I choreographed it on this Arabic poem, on this song, and then again we cut it, we stitched it, music came in similar counts, put it back together, and then played with it again and found these spaces of freedom within it. And then when we played with it, when we repeated, the idea was not preciseness, the idea was not perfection, the idea was relationship, playfulness, freedom, and I think that's basically what she also brings in, is freedom.
It was modernism, no?
Yeah.
This mode of composing it and decomposing.
And recomposing and decomposing.
So dicing it up.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I did mention that.
Exactly.
In the description of the project, maybe here you would like to add something about this process. I was very curious.
Yeah, I think one pretty interesting thing about, I don't necessarily think it's exactly unique to how we put this piece together, because I think it happens a lot in the creative process. But I feel like this piece went through so many different transformations in so many different mediums too, from, the transformation from taking the archival video of Patricia dancing and putting it through several different cycles of analysis with AI to extract that movement data that then we mapped into algorithms for identifying different types of movements that we sort of started to associate with the choreography that Sarah put together. It was sort of one bank of transformations. There was the composition and also the choreographies that we were slicing up, recombining. Feels, that first if section of the song started out as a very sort of melodic, I played a little bit of it at the beginning on the piano, and then just went through this like massive transformation where it turned into like a nightclub, whatever, So I think the visuals that are projected there have also gone through multiple iterations. We've joked at many times, like what you see on the stage tonight represents a very small percentage of everything that we've actually done and tried out on this piece. It's a process of like doing it one way, discarding, saving a little bit, putting it into the next piece, and it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. And on the sign and on the bill it says work in progress. So I can only imagine that we're going to continue to turn the wheel a few more times as we continue to work on it and continue to perform it.
So it's still open. So I will also want to open the discussion for the public. If you have questions or curiosities about this, what you have seen tonight, feel free to.
I'm curious about, for the recording, yeah. I'm curious about the continuation of it. When it's a work in progress, do you have any idea or direction for what will become with this? And what's the next stop? I mean, you go in another residency after Bucharest.
So this residency, it's a part of the MODINA project, which encompasses 5 individual residencies. This is one of the 5. The other 3 of the other 4 have already happened. The 5th is there is one of the residents somewhere around here, or he was. Okay. So anyways, there are 5 that are all exploring similar concepts with AI and dance and interaction. So in the fall, there are some showcases that we'll perform this piece with some of the other resident groups. So we'll be doing 3 of those. We have another show booked in Paris where 3 out of the 4 of us reside. And I think I just saw an email that there is another show over the summer.
Yeah, we're at the moment going to distribute the captation or the video that has been done, and then we'll try to tour it a little bit next
But there will
fall.
be another development? Or
Yeah, I think we will do. I have a residency, kind of a permanent residency in an arts institution in Paris, in which I can book, the studios, etc. And then we will definitely spend the month, I think, of July or June, working on this. I think we need probably almost like an additional month. Also, the format now is quite short. It's approximately 30 minutes here, plus the talk, plus 5-7 minutes on the in situ. That we will keep those elements, but we will develop the piece into a slightly longer version of it. And I think
you will add other elements?
we will add other elements to that. And I think because we're all on stage, we probably would need to review exactly, take some space, take some time off it, and come back to the video, see what happened, take more decisions. But yeah, I hope that we will go more into conversion, because we spent, I would say we spent like 3-4 first weeks, maybe more of this past month, mostly diversion. And then this past week was like, okay, decisions. Put things together. And so it changed a lot in 5 days. So I think that the next month would be expanding on it, review it with fresh eyes, and fresh bodies, fresh ears, everything. So yeah. And definitely the late spring, early summer would be the time we're thinking about working on it in Paris.
So we should come in Paris, you say?
Yeah, and then we probably will start showing it in the fall. So, definitely.
Thank you.
I have a question about the algorithms and the data. They are always they will change somehow, or slightly change, or they will be the same and you will get used to them. I don't know how to.
Yeah, do we always have the same instructions?
Yes,
No.
that's the question.
No.
No, okay, so every time it will be totally different and you don't expect what.
So the material, we know the material.
Yeah.
But
the order
is not known.
Uh-huh.
So every show is different, so you can keep on seeing us every time we perform. Yeah. And of course, the last part of the walk is kind of always similar, but it's improvisational, that part, with the same walk. And then the H, what we call the H, is basically an in situ part of the piece that's also an homage to Tricia's first work that were very in situ, that she did outside, short pieces, etc. So that will depend on the venue.
Can I have the mic? I just want to continue on your question because I had something similar in mind. So, the images just represent the order, kind of, because I wanted to ask if they are reminders or live guides. And do they also work for the musicians as well? Because you mentioned the music is composed.
The images on screen.
Yeah, so that is for you and that one is for you? Or
If we want to be really honest, that is for you. So both of these do convey the same set of information.
but in like a different code or?
Yeah, kind of, and we can sort of explain a little bit of what exactly you're seeing back there. But for us on stage, there's two immediate problems. One is if we're always staring that way, we're sort of facing the wrong direction, and especially for the dancers who are moving all around, they can't always swivel around. That's one thing, and then the other thing, like there's just a lot cognitively to decode there, so it makes it a lot easier if we just have some letters and numbers there that we can follow. But these do actually convey the same information. Sarah maybe you can
Yeah, do you want to
say
know
what
what's
exactly
the scores?
the scores were, because she actually drew the first versions of them.
Yeah, sure.
So the first scores are basically a square with 4 squares, right? Each square is a performer, and the squares convey lines. If they are horizontal, they're go. If they are vertical, they're the same movement but in reverse. And if they are diagonal, they're the same movement but the same sequence but in inverse, which is doing with the upper body what you do with the lower body, and doing with the lower body what you do with the upper body. So we've done all of that for all the sequences. And then we have 3 main sequences, ABC, and this is the thickness of the lines. That's ABC. That's the first part. So it's basically, it says ABC, but go back inverse. And then the second part, these are really scores, and they have the 16 counts is the grid, you see. And the first row is the head, the second row is the right hand, the third row is the left hand, center, right leg, left leg. And then you have lines that mean forward, backward, sideways, each one of the sides, whether it's a direct movement towards or whether it's a circular movement towards is what determines these little thingies. And so it decodes basically every movement and every timestamp of the 16 counts that we have in each movement. But they're very beautiful once you when you just look at them. But you could detect them, except that maybe in 1 week we didn't have enough time to really learn them, and it's cognitively just crazy to actually understand. So we just went with a number that will give us.
So knowing that you had the structures pre-made, but just had to mingle them on stage, kind of, yeah? How did you find the middle ground in which you didn't stutter in the movement? Because I would imagine even if you had the movements like recorded in your brain and the bodies, if the combinations change while you are performing it, you might find yourself in a block. So how do you deal with that? Do you just keep running, you know, keep repeating something, and then you find some sort of balance in between?
Yeah, Bartek, you can answer this one.
How do you do with the bugs?
With the bugs.
I go out.
I don't know. Well, the first tryout of this was very hard. I literally felt like something's wrong with me, with my cognitive processes. But I don't know. I mean, it's also the two of us on stage, so it's always I can catch up, or Sarah can catch up from what the other is doing, if it's by some chance the same thing. If not, it's sometimes also a matter of taking a very subjective decision of, okay, I'm not following what the order is. Other strategies are speeding up, slowing down. Very simple things of just...
It's not like we understand, so...
So there's a certain thing about, even though so much of this is, it seems like so constrained, you know, there's 16 bars and there's all of these sequences and there's a lot of math involved. But I think a lot of the playfulness comes in, and it's part of our objective to also have a pretty high degree of improvisation that happens at the same time. So there are rules, but it's also okay if you break the rules or you miss a cue and you sort of catch up, or you laugh, or you just say, I'm tired, I've done C-go 3 times in a row, and now I'm gonna do C-back, because whatever. So the idea is like, you know, acknowledge the existing structure and, you know, enjoy the process of it. I think that helps a lot. In the first section too, musically, it confuses the hell out of us, because there's 2 extra bars at the end of every 16 bar phrase, which is the time that a new instruction is delivered. and it's that 2 bars to like sort of set, okay, now we go on to this. For any musicians, 16 comes very naturally. 18 does not at all. So that's it's a fun challenge, but it's makes things different. But yeah, so we have various little sort of things built in to assist us as well.
I have one last question if nobody wants to go further. Just regarding what you said, regarding the raging against the machine, how do you deal with the breaking the rules? I mean, what's the transformation behind it? You break the rules, but you still keep the system going. So what does breaking the rules mean then? For both of you, both musicians and performers.
For musicians.
I mean, no, not only. You cannot escape the question.
I mean, it can mean just playing a section that isn't actually what's given by the algorithm. It can be changing a bit. It can also be kind of off from it, and we're just listening to each other and playing with that. So it depends on the section also, because the first one is very much like on a grid, and you can't really, it's hard to go off because otherwise you can't really come back in. The second one is much more free, I think for the dance, but especially for the music, where we, like the length of the sequences are actually given by us. We are playing it and just looking at each other and changing together. And yeah, there's much more freedom in that part.
Just in terms of the rules, the residency was specifically about AI in dance, and we have used a lot of AI in the making of the piece. We've also discarded a lot of the AI components that we tried out and sort of left them behind. And I think 3 of us are also researchers, and we spend a lot of time, from a research perspective, thinking about, AI more than probably we would like to, and digital media and interaction and things like this. I find it really interesting that when creating an artistic performance, like, I feel like we have a certain aesthetic between the 4 of us that when it comes down to it, it's like, well, the AI says to do this, but artistically, we feel like it would probably be better to do this. And I think 100% of the time we do the artistic thing and just say, you know what, AI says this, but we are empowering ourselves to say, but we don't want to do that. And so I feel like very much like the aesthetic, the artistic sensibilities take the lead over following the rules when it comes down to it.
And that's true at different scales. That's true throughout the residency, like all the things that we discarded because they weren't satisfying for us, and that we felt comfortable discarding. It's also true on stage, like as you say, sometimes we take agency, and we go like, let's do number 9 now. Okay, 9, and then we scream. You heard us scream on stage from time to time. That's times where we're like giving each other like instructions to go against, or saying to each other, let's just do this instead, or so there are definitely moments where we take that freedom, and it feels good, it feels great.
Cool.
Well, thank you.
So, are there?
I have. It's short. Why did you choose Trisha? And if it would have been another postmodernist, if there wouldn't have been any videos, how would you have dealt with that? If videos were an important part of creation?
Yeah. Why Trisha among all the postmodernists? I think, well, if you count Mircea in postmodernism too? Yeah, neoclassic. Yeah, so... Yvonne Reiner. I think it's because Trisha, for me, has both formats of like big performances on stage and also in situ kind of performances, where it's not necessarily the case with all the postmodernists. Also, I mean, I could think of myself doing portraits of the others. I don't know, in the future, why not? I had done also a workshop with the Trisha Brown company about set and reset, and that had stayed with me somewhere in my head. So it really kind of nurtured some of the aesthetics that I like, and also I think that it's also a dance that's super joyful. And so agreeable on the body. So I think this piece is a lot about the pleasure of dancing, the pleasure and the freedom of being on stage, and of that kind of like just flow. So I would say that for sure she really embodies for me. And what at the beginning we hadn't expected that we'd be working on her video. It's because when we arrived here, Corina was like, we have all these archives of Trisha Brown, and she was really excited, and we looked at them, and so we said, oh great, what about if we work on them? We were going to just, you know, check out stuff on YouTube and read some books and work on that, also on the research I had done previously, but then there were resources here, and we thought, great, let's use them. So that's where that came from. But I do a project, for example, on Isadora Duncan, which is not postmodern at all, but she didn't have videos, for example. So in that project, we are recording Isadora Duncan dancers and doing motion capture from that without having previous resources. So I guess it's all kind of coincidences depending on where you are and the resources you have. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I guess, I mean, she also worked a lot with technology. And also with the equipment pieces, I mean, she had this kind of constraints of this kind of also structures. I think they are very similar to what you were interested in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's call it a night. Thank you very much for being here and for sharing this stuff.